Hello and welcome to Antinatalism This Week. A Round of Applause is a new show on Netflix released on 29th of February. It is a series of 6 episodes. I myself have not seen the show, partly because I've never had Netflix and partly because this week at least I did not get time. But whatever information I'm going to say is based on this particular review that you are seeing on the screen. It says that this Round of Applause series is either based on or has some similarity to the thoughts of antinatalism. The show revolves around 3 characters, 2 parents and their son. It is in Turkish. The parents have some kind of anxiety, parental anxiety, while they are having a new child. And then once that child comes into existence, that son actually realizes the superficiality of this world. He becomes a poet and then becomes a DJ. And the show is about their experiences and their interactions. So very interesting. I have not seen the show, so please let me know if you have and what you think about it, if it is really based on antinatalism. I came across this YouTube short on TENET Media. This channel seems to have like 65,000 subscribers, and they have put a short which is sort of indicative of the attitudes that pro-natalists usually have towards women. Let's have a look at the entire short first before we then dissect argument by argument.
The washing machine, the microwave, the convection stove, these are the things that reduced the birth rate. Because it used to be a function of, if we want to survive, we need a family.
Right.
2 people cannot survive on their own.
Right.
Have kids. It takes a community, or what is it? Is that what it takes? It takes a neighborhood or something to have a kid. And then you need more people to do work. If you stop having kids, you will die. You will cease to exist. So sure, if you go back 400 years and there's a woman who was saying things like, I think I only want to have 1 kid, they would be like, shun the non-believer. If that ideology became persistent or was persistent.
But is that healthy? I guess what I'm saying is I don't understand. So you're wanting to
society would cease to exist. If you go back to the dawn of humanity and took two different couples and one woman said, I just don't want to have that many kids. Totally fine. 20 years later, that tribe is gone.
Yeah. Okay.
So evolutionary pressure was specifically in favor of women who wanted to have lots of kids.
Okay, so let's have a look at quite a lot of arguments and fallacies made in that. Let's go one by one. Let's first hear the first part of the argument.
The washing machine, the microwave, the convection stove, these are the things that reduced the birth rate.
Well, that was not the primary reason why these technologies were invented. They are not like condoms. What they have done is they have freed up women from their domestic chores. They have given freedom to women who then realize that they can be in control of their own decisions. There is a general correlation that once that happens, women start having lesser and less children, if at all. So that's just a result we should be welcoming.
Because it used to be a function of, if we want to survive, we need a family.
Right.
2 people cannot survive on their own.
Right.
Have kids. It takes a community, or what is it? Is that what it takes? It takes a neighborhood or something to have a kid.
It takes a village to take care of a kid, to raise a child. But that does not mean if the village is there, you ought to have a kid.
And then you need more people to do work. If you stop having kids, you will die.
If you stop having kids, you will die. This is a fallacy of equivocation. What that means is you take a particular term and apply it in a different way. You will die even if you have 100 children. You will eventually die. The problem here is, who is you here? He is not implying you as this individual, because I think he also would realize that individuals would eventually die even if they have children. He means a group of people, a tribe or a species would eventually die. So we'll come to that.
You will cease to exist. So sure, if you go back 400 years and there's a woman who was saying things like, I think I only want to have 1 kid, they would be like, shun the non-believer. If that ideology became persistent or was persistent.
But is that healthy? I guess what I'm saying is I don't understand. So you're wanting to
society would cease to exist.
Why is that a bad thing? If society ceases to exist through the process of non-reproduction, if we phase out, and for the sake of argument, I'm only focusing on humans here. But so if we phase out through lesser and lesser population, lesser and lesser reproduction, why is that a bad thing? You can argue it is a bad thing because during the process, until the point where we reach the 0 population, the intermediate people will suffer a lot. The economic problems and the problems of people not able to help each other and so on. that much is bad, but that is a lesser bad compared to a continuous cycle of suffering going for billions and billions of years, and people just keep on reproducing. So this question of why this particular thing is a bad thing, it is implied. It is worst possible thing is what is implied here, but it's not answered why it is such a case.
If you go back to the dawn of humanity and took two different couples, and one woman said, I just don't want to have that many kids. Totally fine. 20 years later, that tribe is gone.
Is anybody from that tribe suffering today? I don't think so.
Yeah. Okay.
So evolutionary pressure was specifically in favor of women who wanted to have lots of kids.
Evolutionary pressure was in favor of women who wanted to have lot of kids, and therefore we should be having lot of kids is not a reason enough. This is just appeal to nature. Evolution has happened in a certain way. The way evolution works only tells us what has happened. It does not tell us what we should do with it and how we should behave. These are the words even by Richard Dawkins, one of the most respected evolutionary biologists. I just want to say that while responding to this, I'm not saying that extinction should happen or extinction should be our goal, although that can be, some antinatalists believe in that way. The point I'm making is you cannot use the threat of extinction as a justification for having more kids. Lawrence did another interview with Karim Akerma, sort of part 2, but this was focused on history of antinatalism. So the title is Brief History of Antinatalism. Before we go into details of what was covered in that video, just a bit of couple of news from there. Lawrence is working on a new series called Antinatalism in History. So very interesting, looking forward to that. He would be having different episodes on specific periods or authors in the past on antinatalism, as far as I can tell. He is also working on a special episode on Kurnik. Kurnik is someone Karim Akerma describes as first full-fledged antinatalist. So again, looking forward to that episode also. In this video, they discussed about different aspects of antinatalism in the past. They discuss about proto-antinatalism, what is proto-antinatalism and how is that different than the current contemporary antinatalism. And one interesting point which Karim Akerma pointed out there was that right now what we are in is a second wave of antinatalism. So the first wave of antinatalism could be thought of as various different forms of antinatalisms, either religious antinatalisms or other philosophers like Schopenhauer. Whereas this second wave is more into science-based, analytical philosophy-based antinatalism. So very interesting concept there. They also discussed about antinatalism in ancient Egypt, in ancient Greece. They also talked about Gnosticism. So Karim Akerma thinks that Gnosticism was a religion which was, during its time, it was a heyday for antinatalism. They discussed Marcionites, Manichaeism, if I'm saying that right. They also discuss antinatalism in Christianity, and that is quite well studied, quite a few books written on this subject. Then they talked about three people. One is Al-Mari, we all know, the Syrian poet in 10th century, Omar Khayyam, and Farid Uddin Attar. So these three people were sort of in the Arab culture, maybe in Islamic culture at the time, and they seem to have antinatalist inclinations, or at least have contributed to antinatalism in some way or form. So they discuss these three people. Then of course Immanuel Kant, and I was a little bit surprised because you talk about Immanuel Kant and his contribution to antinatalism. I have tried to read Kant and I can't understand Kant, but it's a pleasant surprise to see what he has done. So that was interesting. Then they talk about Hegel, who is the arch nemesis of Schopenhauer, his contribution to antinatalism, and of course Karl Marx and his contribution to antinatalism. There's a French philosopher / author writer called Philippe Bilot. He goes by the pen name of Anaba, and they talked about his work and books. And I think that person, Philippe Bilot, is still alive. Most of his work is in French. So we came all the way from ancient Egypt, ancient Greece, all the way till the philosopher who is still alive and working on antinatalism. So quite an interesting journey. One of the points Karim Akerma emphasized more than once was that there is a greater need for more research into this aspect. Like if we really do more research, we would definitely find more antinatalisms in different cultures in the history. And he mentions especially in the countries like India and China, there is a greater need for research of antinatalism in the past, and I cannot agree more with him, definitely. So overall, very interesting episode. Looking forward to the new things that Lawrence is going to bring up. But thank you, Lawrence, for doing this. And of course, thank you to Karim Akerma for providing all of this information to us. Botstiber Institute of Wildlife Fertility Control, as the name says, works on fertility control of wild animals. Giovanna Masai, who is the director of that institute, gave a talk on this topic this week. The title was what are the 8 reasons that you should invest in wildlife fertility control? And here on the screen at the end of the talk, she actually shows what those 8 reasons are. Before that, however, she explained why should we be doing fertility control in the first place. There is increasing population of wild animals, increasing population of humans, mainly human population is increasing, and urban human populations are increasing. As a result of that, a lot of human-animal conflicts are arising, and it causes trouble on both sides, on the human side as well as it causes a lot of suffering to wild animals also. So these are the main reasons why we have to look at what the populations of wild animals are. Traditionally, the methods that have been used to control wild animal populations are like killing, culling, trapping, and shooting, which are very harmful to those animals. On the other hand, what they are proposing is fertility control methods, which involves injecting contraceptives to wild animals or delivering them through oral contraceptives, or even in case of some species, delivering contraceptives as part of vaccination. So I know that there are a lot of vaccination drives even in countries like India for stray dogs which get infected by rabies. So along with these vaccines, if we also inject contraceptives, that would be a better thing to do. So those ideas like what sort of contraceptives to use, what medicines to use, they differ as per the species. Different species will have different contraceptives. The effectiveness of those contraceptives also differ by species. Some would last for months, some would last for years, some are permanent, and so on. And the delivery methods also would vary by species. Along with that, the acceptance of local society matters, because many people have, different sorts of sentiments towards animals, and they try to project their own values to other animals. So the local acceptance is very important, and that differs from culture to culture, species to species, situation to situation, and it's a socially complex subject to handle. She touches on that point as well. They also have this FAQ link on their website which answers different frequently asked questions you can have a look at. Now, one thing is that Giovanni Masai herself is not an antinatalist, and you could argue that why am I even talking about this here? This is fertility control of wild animals. So as a direct result of that, if many wild animals who would have come into existence would not be coming into existence. From that perspective, this is in line with antinatalism. Again, there are many antinatalists, even sentiocentric antinatalists, who think that intervention into wildlife in this manner is not ethical, or who think that it is ethical but it doesn't come under antinatalism. So there are different views to it, and that can be discussed. But specifically for fertility control, we are preventing new animals from coming into existence, and therefore I thought this is an update. Some people might be interested into this. Furthermore, they also are going to have a workshop about this on, I think, 17th and 18th of June, as you can see on the screen. So anybody who is interested can register and then attend the workshop. As we go nearer to the date, if I get more updates, I would be including those in the subsequent episodes. 83rd episode of the Exploring Antinatalism Podcast was aired this week. It was an interview of Juan Iturraspe, Adrian Gamez, and Luis Merida. I'm sorry I'm not saying those names right, but they are the creators of this magazine, Spanish magazine Revista Genedas. And they are doing the excellent work of bringing all of the antinatalism work in different languages, in English, in Portuguese, in other languages. And they are working on translating all of that into Spanish and making them available to local Spanish audience. So it's a great work they're doing, and this podcast was about that. The interview was about how their journey has been, what exactly are they doing, what support they're getting from other Spanish academics and publishers. They are situated, I think, in Barcelona. They are in University of Barcelona, so what support they get from there and so on. Very interesting work to see. I mean, bringing all of this work from other languages into Spanish is a very good project, and I wish for other languages also something like this happens. I would want to do this for some of the Indian languages, at least the ones I know, but I don't know when I'll get to it. So very much exciting interview. Thank you, Amanda, for doing that, and thank you this team of Revista Anidas to doing such an excellent work. 3 more videos this week I would like to mention. One of them is by benedictinethetruth, Antinatalism versus Efilism. He, in his own style, discusses these aspects, antinatalism and Efilism. For a change, these days, he seems to be doing videos from indoors rather than how he used to do outdoors in nice natural scenery. Anyway, video worth a watch. There was another video made by Lawrence talking to George Martin. George Martin is the creator of the YouTube channel Carnism Debunked. And in the last week on Carnism Debunked, George interviewed David Benatar, and they talked about if extinction can harm other animals, especially human extinction can harm other animals. And I had done a bit of a response for certain parts in the last week's update. This week they're discussing this full on. It's a full more than 2 hours video, and people were also asking questions at the end. Quite an engaging discussion there. And the third video, as you can see, is by the Vegan Voidcast. This is a podcast, and Lenny and Carlos do this podcast, and this time they are interviewing Mark J. Maharaj. Mark J. Maharaj is quite an old-time antinatalist now. He has, his own niche. He is also the administrator and creator of the group Academic Antinatalism Philosophy on Facebook. Mark seems to be more interested into academic and philosophical arguments. The interview was quite entertaining. I should update that it also involved the history of some of the drama that has happened in the antinatalist circles. The other interesting point was that Mark described himself as Benatarian but agent relative. He has some positions. Earlier we talked about wildlife fertility control, and I think he has some positions whether we should not do these kinds of things. He thinks that we don't have a positive duty to go out and prevent for coming into existence of other animals. So things like that, quite interesting arguments from various different aspects of antinatalism were discussed. So interesting topic. One of the main arguments against wildlife intervention and thought experiments like red button experiment is that how do you know that you are for sure going to achieve the outcomes that you want to achieve? In case of wildlife intervention, it is said that the ecological system is so complex that you can never be sure that it will not backfire, and it will rather increase suffering rather than reducing it. Similar is the case with red button experiment, that how would you know that the beings that you want to be vanished, how do you know for sure that all of them would go extinct or all of them would disappear and none of them would remain to populate back again? A similar argument has been employed in this article which you see on the screen against sort of artificial intelligence. The title of the article is Against Augmentation of Intelligence, Humans or Otherwise, an Antinatalist Argument by Benjamin Bowlier. It is a very short article but very pro-antinatalist article. It starts off with the reasons of antinatalism, and then it says that even if we accept that antinatalism is the norm, even if imagine that antinatalism is the normal course of society, the argument can be that for helping existing people, why not develop these artificial intelligence systems? Why not have some intelligence augmentation to humans? To which this article says that we are ridden with so many biases like existence bias, optimism bias, bias against death, the death anxiety, the fear that we feel for death and so on. The article says that how are you sure that these biases don't actually make this complex, don't actually backfire the intelligence that you are creating? That's one. The second is, the point the article makes is that, especially as far as humans are concerned, we know that intelligence is a double-edged sword. Intelligence has a great utility for humans, but at the same time, it can also be a great cause of suffering. So how do you know that the augmentation of intelligence that you would be doing artificially or otherwise will not be the cause of greater suffering. These are some of the points made in the article, entertaining article and short article. I would request everybody to have a look at it.